The regular board meeting of the governing board of trustees of Romoland School District is called to order at 5:31. Roll call, Mr. Eller. Here. Ms. Kleitz.
Here.
And myself, Mr. Aguirre is here. Ms. Moon will not be joining us tonight, and Mr. Sperry will be joining us later this evening. Do we have any public comment for closed session?
No, we do not.
Closed session is called at 5:31 PM to discuss public employee discipline, dismissal, releases, negotiations, and superintendent evaluation.
Hi, Rosalind. Can you hear me? It's Michelle. I can't hear you. Are you muted? Let's do testing, testing.
I am unmuted now.
I can hear you now. Great. Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to start the meeting in a moment, and then we'll let you know when to unmute and begin. Okay?
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
The regular board meeting of the Romoland School District has reconvened at 6:30 PM. Was there any actions taken in closed session, Ms. Kleitz?
No, there was no action taken.
Thank you. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. So our government's norms, we act with dignity, respect differences, build trust, work as a team, engage the public, focus on the success of every student, and work together for the common good. So governing board, real communication governing board and the superintendent. So governing board of trustees reports, Mr. Reller.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. I want to apologize ahead of time to the public and my board members. My comments are going to be fairly lengthy tonight. I want to first start out by recognizing our superintendent, Mr. Trevor Payton. Trevor received the award for Superintendent of the Year for the Western Riverside County School Managers Association. And how you get this award is, one, you have to be nominated. And you're not usually nominated by one of your own staff. So someone in the district saw the great work that Trevor was doing and nominated him for this award. This award then goes to a long list of administrators in that association to determine who deserves to get this award. Now, I can tell you about Raxum. Raxum is one of the largest associations with total numbers of school districts in it in our region. And so that means Trevor was competing against probably about 15 other superintendents that were nominated for Superintendent of the Year. And I can tell you, it is no easy task to win this recognition. So this not only is a feather in Trevor's cap, they checked all the boxes, but he excelled above all of the other candidates that were submitted for this award. We are so lucky to have Trevor as our superintendent, and it's great to see the neighboring districts in Western Riverside County to recognize him as well. So let's give Trevor a round of applause. I know he's watching. Way to go, Trevor. Trevor has always been there for us. He's been with us a number of years as assistant soup and now as our superintendent, and he is so deserving of this award. So congratulations, Trevor. I want to also highlight that after schools reopened in-person instruction, I was able to visit Boulder Ridge, Mesa View, and Boulder Ridge and Mesa View with students in person, and it was amazing. Kids were smiling, having fun. Teachers were teaching kids routines. They were in their classrooms, learning all kinds of different things, not only safety protocols and practices, but the content. Just kids were, you can't see the smile on their face because they had their face covering on, but as we like to say now, we can see them smiling in their eyes. And it was amazing. They had organization at their schools where they had the teacher's picture, because guess what the kids remember? They remember the picture of the teacher on the computer screen through distance learning. So they would walk, this was at Boulder Ridge, and they would walk around and they would have the teacher's picture and the kids would know what room to go to. Mesa View, just walking through that campus, and because Mesa View, you walk through the inside and you see a lot of the windows from the inside and the kids in there learning and the teachers interacting with their kids. It was like they didn't skip a beat from, distance learning on to in-person instruction. And going to Ethan A. Chase, they were ready to go for those kids to come back to in-person. They were in preparation, getting ready for our kids to come back. And it was really, really neat to see our kids working in their classrooms and the teachers doing such a great job. And also, who's been around all the time? The classified staff. You walk in those buildings and those schools and they got a big smile on their face. They have all the safety protocols in place, their hand sanitizer, their temperature sensor, which I really like because you just put your arm in front of it and it tells you what temperature. So we had a contest of who would have the highest or lowest temperature as you left after you walked around the campus. Really, really cool. So very impressed with all of the staff there. Let's see, next item. Trevor and I attended an equity workshop put on by CSBA, California School Boards Association, and the trainer is Nicole Anderson. I've been at a number of her trainings before. Really, really enjoyed it. And, listening to some of the other board members and what Nicole was saying is really showed me that we are so far ahead of a lot of other school districts in the state of California when it comes to equity. And we had an equity presentation on March 9th, and it brought back a lot of those things that we talked about on March 9th. And these are things that need to be on the forefront of all of our discussion each and every day. Legislative Action Day. I participated in 11 Legislative Action Day today, and I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with a representative here, Kelly Searto, and we talked about we talked about returning to in-person instruction. We talked about assessments that we'll get to a little bit later. We also talked about the need for additional school funding. And one of the questions that I bring up frequently is Prop 98. And Prop 98 was designed to be the basement of school funding. And now legislatures see it as a ceiling. And it's a continual message that we have with our legislators. Really, really exciting. And making sure I don't miss anything. And I think that's it. I've had an exciting few weeks. My gosh, it's been a lot of fun. I highly recommend getting involved with a Legislative Action Day because Kelly is a down-to-earth, good representative. He listens. He was a firefighter for so many years. He lives here locally. Sounds like a great representative for us in the Assembly. Thank you. Sorry it took so long.
Thank you, Mr. Reller. That was awesome. Ms. Claves.
That wasn't really that long. Because I've known you to go longer. That wasn't long at all. Well, I have a few things that I would like to talk about. And the first one being is Nikki over here. She also was honored by the WRCASM as Confidential Employee of the Year. So let's give her a nice round of applause. And that's no easy task, as you said, Mr. Reller, when talking about Superintendent Payton as well. Nikki, you excel. You get this down now. You excel above all. and we greatly appreciate you. Just a few highlights about Nikki. She demonstrates an exemplary work ethic and is always courteous and professional, and maintains the confidential nature of her job. And her job is difficult because not only does she assist Superintendent Payton, but she also assists us as a board. So she has to like divide herself confidentially there. Has helped the district streamline and improve internal processes based on her recommendations and collaboration with others. And a big kudo, and we were very proud of her here on the board as well, has served as CSBA's Executive Assistant Advisory Committee since 2018 and has been instrumental in the creation of CSBA's Executive Assistant Certification Program. There was a time when the executive assistants took a very quiet seat at CSBA, and now because of that team and Nikki, they are out there doing a certified program. So Nikki, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Another thing is, Mr. Reller, first of all, thank you for being the eyes of the board, going out and doing those visits, because that's something I just am really missing. So I appreciate hearing everything that you saw out there, and maybe we can talk later about some more things. And I want to give a shout out to the certificated and the classified throughout the district, from TK preschool all the way up to our middle school. This has been difficult. It has been hard. It has been challenging. And to walk in your steps would be very challenging. And I personally, and I know the board is, extremely proud of you and the work that you have done. So keep it up. Things will get better. Remember, wear your mask, social distance, and wash your hands.
Slides. And then myself, likewise, I mean, just great things that you guys said as far as for our staff and Mr. Payton and Nikki. I mean, Nikki just makes everything just so easy for us. It's crazy, but we just have amazing people here at the district that makes this so great and runs so smoothly. Again, thanks, Mr. Reller, for doing those visits for us to be in those eyes. But that's mine. I'm just glad to see everything is running smoothly, hoping to see everything go back to normal. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report with Dr. Wise.
Good evening, Board President Aguirre and board members. Mr. Payton is unable to attend this evening, so I'll be filling in tonight. And the update I'll provide will be later in this agenda with the COVID-19 school impact update.
Thank you. We'll move on now to student recognition and announcements. Dr. Wise.
We'd like to congratulate our students of the month for April. From Boulder Ridge Elementary, L. Nathan Woods, grade 4, and Gracie Delgado, grade 4. From Harvest Valley Elementary, David Flores, grade 2, and Christy Velasquez de la Cruz, grade 4. From Mesa View Elementary, Isabella Burgos, grade 1, and Lily Davis, grade 4. From Romoland Elementary, Audrey Atua, grade transitional kinder, TK, and Sofia Gayona Cabrera, grade kindergarten. And from Ethan A. Chase Middle School, Tatiana Barrera, grade 7, and Yahir Aguilar Carrillo, grade 8. Congratulations to those students. And for the parents and guardians, families, the awards are at the school sites already for the kids, as well as their yard signs. And families can arrange for pickup of those items with their students' school site administration. Thank you.
We'll now move on to public comments. Nikki, is there any public comments?
No, there are not.
Okay. And then for employee association reports, do we have any association reports, Mr. Murray?
We do have a joint statement from RTA and CSEA. And if we're ready, I'll start reading. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Payton, and Cabinet. We would like to share our perspective and thoughts as to how the Romoland School District has maneuvered through this past 13 months. As board members, you're aware of what Cabinet staff have been doing and how difficult it has been for them to stay up with the ever-changing recommendations from the various health and safety organizations. Both association leaders have been equally dedicated as Cabinet to every step in getting our staff and students back in the classrooms and work sites. We have donated countless hours to benefit our students, staff, and district. Worked an enormous amount of time with site staff and district personnel to make these past months to be as smooth and uneventful as possible. As association leaders, we hear and see what is going on at other districts, the pushback and lack of working together to do what is best for our students, for reasons we don't completely understand ourselves. Neither district or associations are willing to work to compromise. However, we work well with each other, not always as quick as we both would like, but our goal is the same, so therefore we believe that is why we are successful. We would like to continue this forward motion, bringing back more students to campus cautiously. The district has fulfilled every state requirement that is required to be granted the extra monies for the district. Both associations still need to continue to meet negotiations to iron out critical details in order to continue our successful pattern. We believe that an additional 2 weeks will allow us this time and be the best interest of staff and district. Respectfully, Ramona Massey, Romoland CSCA Chapter President, and Mary Wigman, Romoland RTA Chapter President.
Thank you. We need to move on to the information items. Harvest American School Counselor Association's recognition, ASCA Model Program Award presentation. Dr. Weiss?
We are so thrilled, lucky, and proud of Harvest Valley Elementary School this evening and school counselor Rosalind Carroll, who is with us this evening virtually. Harvest Valley and Ms. Carroll's counseling program was recently recognized by the the American School Counselor Association, to receive a model award called RAMP, which means having a counseling program that is highly effective, aligned with the school counseling standards, and implemented extremely well. And so tonight, Ms. Carroll will be sharing the process of what it takes to be a RAMP school and what it took to implement a model program to earn the award. So with that, I turn it over to Rosalind Carroll.
Good evening. With respect to our board president, Manuel Gary, the board members at large, and our superintendent in his absence, Mr. Payton, and also to our assistant superintendent, Dr. Wise. My name is Rosalind Carroll, and I'm the counselor at Harvest Valley Elementary School. And I'm here today to share the RAMP process with you, insights we've gained while going through the process, and the benefits of having RAMP status. You can go ahead and move to the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. So let's begin with what RAMP is. RAMP is an acronym for Recognized ASCA Model Program. ASCA is simply the umbrella under which counselors operate. RAMP is an opportunity to take an in-depth look at one's counseling program. It is an opportunity for counselors to analyze the school's data to develop a comprehensive school counseling program aligned with ASCA standards. It is a recognition that your counseling program strives to assure that students are healthy, they are safe, they are engaged, supported, and challenged. It is awarded to schools that put the needs of students first while simultaneously addressing the needs of the whole child. For Harvest Valley, this process actually began with data collection during the 2019-2020 school year. It consists of 10 sections that require proper documentation and supports, and also 34 written reflections that may not exceed 250 words. Allow me to just take a moment to briefly share what each section entails. For this section, Counselors must submit the district's, the schools, and the counseling program's vision and mission statements. The counseling vision statement and their vision statement must align with those of the school and the district, and they must ensure that all students benefit from a school counseling program emphasizing equity, access, and success, and particularly what we want to see from our students from 5 to 15 years from now. In section 2, the annual student outcome goals are submitted. Based on the data, these goals support the work of the school's SIPSA plan and guide the implementation of the school's counseling activities and interventions. The comparable data before you allows you to see that Harvest Valley's counseling program was justified in supporting English language arts and attendance during the 2019-2020 school year. Therefore, the following goals were accepted by the administration and the Counselors Advisory Council. Goal number 1, which was attendance. By June 2020, socially, economically disadvantaged students labeled chronically absent will decrease rates of chronic absenteeism 23.4% from 12.8 to 9.8, and that is a measure of change. Goal number 2 was an achievement goal. By June 2020, 5th grade English language learners struggling with completing iReady assignments will increase their diagnostic scores by 10% from diagnostic 1, which was an average of 480 on a scale score, to a diagnostic score of 528. Section 3 addresses ASCA's mindsets and behaviors for student success. These mindsets and behaviors help counselors create an effective plan to teach students the knowledge, attitudes, and skills appropriate for their developmental levels. One example of the mindsets and behaviors is mindset 3, a sense of belonging in the school environment. In order to make sure students who are working on improving their attendance felt a sense of belonging, they were invited to participate in Harvest Valley's Mentoring Matters program and to check in with the counselor daily to celebrate their presence at school. There are 6 mindsets and 29 behaviors for learning strategies, self-management, and social skills. Each one should be addressed within an effective counseling program. This table before you gives a glimpse of how they are addressed at Harvest Valley and how they were shared during this process. So you see on the chart on the left side that the mindsets are available for you to look at. In the middle, the corresponding activities, who participated in those activities, and whether or not they were in a classroom setting or a small group setting. The annual administrative conference is a formal discussion between the counselor and the administrator required at the beginning of each school year. One of the topics included during the discussion is how the counselor will maintain 80% of time in delivery of direct and indirect student services, which is required by ASCA standards. The minutes for this meeting must be uploaded in the application portal. Per ASCA, all counselors must have an advisory council. It is a representative group of stakeholders selected to review and advise on the implementation of the school counseling program. The council must meet at least twice a year, and the agendas and minutes for the meetings must be uploaded into the application portal as well. The counselor's annual calendar, a fall calendar, and a spring calendar must be uploaded in this section to share what, when, and where the school counseling activities will be held. Lesson plans for direct instruction of social emotional skills and skills for academic success are uploaded in this section, as well as the corresponding pre and post tests for each unit submitted. For sections 8 through 10, the analysis of the data collected throughout the year was submitted. To satisfy this requirement, results were submitted from the second grade emotion management unit for the classroom results report, while the counselor reflected on how the lessons in the unit could have been improved. On our next slide, you'll notice that we also had to submit information or results for the small group as well as the closing the gap results report. For this, we focused on the iReady group. During this analysis, barriers for success were identified and how the attainment of the ASCA mindset behaviors promoted positive change in our students. Those were also reviewed. Let's take a look at slide 10. We've already discussed it. Next slide, please. Applicants must access this scoring rubric to guide them through the process. Each section of the application allows points to be earned or deducted, ranging from 5 to 7 points per section. There are a total of 60 achievable points. Next slide. In order to earn ramp status, a school must score a minimum of 54 out of 60 points. However, there is also a special recognition for schools scoring 58 or above. These schools become ramp schools of distinction. Harvest Valley scored 58.67 points. Therefore, Harvest Valley officially represents Romoland School District as a ramp school of distinction for the 2020-21 school year. To put things in perspective, last year in 2020, there were only 78 schools in the nation that earned ramp status. 8 of those schools were in California, and only 6 schools were recognized as schools of distinction across the nation. The data for the 2021 school year has not yet been published. Having gone through the process, I do have some insights or advice for my fellow counselors. I'd like to encourage my colleagues to work together as a team and create a system in which you can share constructive criticism. Also, be sure to include charts and graphs for the reviewers to easily understand your rationale and examples to support your thought process. Most importantly, let the scoring rubric guide the process. Because of this process, Harvest Valley is validated in our team approach to counseling. We now know that our system to support students is effective and approved by ASCA standards. So this summer, Harvest Valley will excitedly accept our award at the ASCA conference and proudly display the engraved plaque at our school and use the ramp logo as a reminder of how important it is to address the needs of the whole child while emphasizing equity, access, and support for all of our students. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any questions?
There are comments, Rosalind.
There are comments, and this is coming from one of your former people who have been a counselor, and I get you. And I get the work you've done and the work that our district is doing. And first of all, I want to thank you for being that leader, because that's so important. And you are, you're leading, and I'm sure your colleagues that are counselors, they're doing amazing things as well. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate
wow, that's wow.
that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, just looking at the numbers, when you went through it, as far as how many schools actually qualified and where one of those schools is it just shows what a tremendous job you guys are doing. I mean, 58.67 out of 60 is just incredible. That's just incredible.
And I also especially appreciate your support, Mr. Gary, because you have been there whenever I called for you to come to our college and career days or whatever events I asked you to speak at. You had never hesitated to come. So I appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Can't wait to start doing that again.
Yeah, me too.
You know, our students have really went through the social emotional turmoil since we went to distance learning in March of 2020. And, this board has advocated for counseling services for our kids for years. We increased the number of SAP counselors available to our students. We work to ensure that our students have access to counseling, but our kids are going to need more counseling. They're going to need a lot of love when they come back to more in-person instruction, and next year, a more robust counseling program. One of the things that we're fortunate, and I think this is year one of 3 years of our LCAP coming up. So I hope that our staff has included you as well as other counselors as a stakeholder group to see where we can carve out more resources for counseling for our kids. So it's a great opportunity for us. But I really commend you on your work. I've done a lot of reading of Trish Hatch. I think she is a very important counselor in the ASCA model.
Yes.
And it's clear that some of the things that I've read from her, you've included into your program, data-driven approach, pre-test, post-test, direct instruction lessons, great things that a good counseling program does. Your instruction is just as important as our math instruction.
Yes.
So when you're inside the classroom giving instruction, that is extremely important. And I'm very glad to see that that's happening at Harvest Valley, and I hope it is happening at all of our schools.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, I'd like to make one comment too, in addition to what's already been said, to say that without the support of the staff and teachers classified as well as certificated at Harvest Valley, that we would not be successful. I know that it appears that this is my program sometimes, but it is not. And I do want to make that clear that this is a joint effort that we as a whole school work to make sure that we achieve things at the highest level. We always say hawks soar high no matter what, and this is indicative of that.
Thank you. We'll now, if there are no further comments or questions, we'll now recognize the counselor, Rosalind Carroll and Harvest Valley Elementary School for the RAMP Award. Dr. Wise.
So we know that Harvest Valley and Rosalind Carroll will receive some official awards at the ASCA conference this summer. However, we wanted to make sure we recognized Counselor Rosalind Carroll's work to make this award-winning program, a stellar program, one of very few in our country. So we have this beautiful award for you, Rosalind, that we'll make sure you get later this week. It's here. Hope you can see it on the screen. And I'll read that it says Romoland School District, the American School Counselor Association, and the recognized ASCA Model Program designation is presented to Harvest Valley Elementary School Counseling Program. Thank you to Mrs. Rosalind Carroll, Elementary School Counselor and Harvest Valley staff, 2020-21. And then it talks about Harvest Valley being recognized. So congratulations and thank you, Rosalind. We appreciate you and your hard work. And I also appreciate you sharing this presentation tonight as a resource for other counselors as we work to have other schools in our district become RAMP schools. Thank you. For Rosalind, this is for you. And we have one for Harvest Valley as well for the front office.
Thank you so much.
With that, it's time for a round of applause. Thanks, Rosalind.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to the COVID-19 school impact update. Dr. Wise.
Okay, this evening is our school COVID-19 school impact update, and we start with pictures. Mr. Reller, you spoke of the smiling eyes. And so these pictures capture the smiling eyes and the joy. On March 15th and 16th, we brought back our TK through 2 at all our elementary schools. And these are pictures from those 2 first days for our kids to come back to hybrid instruction and on-campus learning. We'll go to the next. Grades 3 through 5 came a week later. March 22nd and 23rd were the first days for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And here you see celebration. There are balloons in these pictures. Our staff was excited to have kids back. Our campuses were decorated for the little ones, TK through 2, as well as 3 through 5. There were signs, there were balloons. Mr. Reller spoke of it earlier, seeing it in person. And you see that kids are following the protocols. They're wearing their masks. They're doing their check-in, their distancing. Next slide. We also brought back the littles, preschool students on March 22nd and 23rd. And here, same thing, you see the joy, you see the kiddo pointing with his finger there in the corner. His eyes are smiling. He is happy to be at preschool. And you see the kids wearing their masks, doing their social distancing and getting their temperatures checked. And they are just handling it, you know, so well. They're so responsible. Next. And then middle schoolers came back. Grades 6 through 8 on March 29th and 30th were the first 2 days of school for our middle schoolers. We had so many adults on campus to help guide them, especially our 6th graders, where there was the first days on campus. And so you see adults pointing and sharing how to get to their room location. People had maps for the kids. And you see the students in the quad, and they are distancing as they walk from class to class. Very organized, very safe, and there was a lot of signage and positivity welcoming students back. And so our updated numbers of program enrollment, we have 72% of our students returning for on-campus instruction in the hybrid format, and 28% of our students have remained in virtual. Their families have chosen that. We have been offering COVID testing, as you know, symptomatic and response PCR testing. PCR is the gold standard for testing, is provided by the district for staff and students. And since the reopening process has started in mid-March, we've administered 478 tests to students and staff as part of preparing for school opening, and then any symptomatic and response testing needed. It's been very safe, and there's only been 1 known case out of school since the reopening, and our safety measures worked. That person checked in at one of our screening stations and had symptoms and went to the isolation room, and never really came into the interior of campus and was offered a test. So 1 case, been very safe, no outbreaks. As of today, Riverside County is in the orange tier. That happened last week. We know we became orange tier. This is today's most current data, a 3.6 adjusted case rate in Riverside County for our tier assignment in orange, and a 2% positivity rate of COVID across the county. Very consistent with last week's data, which was 3.5 adjusted case rate and 2% positivity for when we went into the orange tier. And this just shows that we have moved from purple to red and now to orange. The orange star, we've made it to the orange tier as a county. And so moving forward, statewide, there are low case rates and high levels of vaccine distribution. Recently, Governor Newsom announced an end to the color tier system as of June 15th, and that there is an expectation for all schools to open for full-time in-person instruction in fall 2021. We are expecting updated California Department of Public Health guidance for schools for this fall. There has been the flexibility with state testing provided by our state when it comes to the CASP state testing for this spring. We are offering an in-person summer school program for this summer, and there is the plan to offer a virtual program option for families next year for families who seek that option as we've discussed at previous board meetings, and we had surveyed families to determine if there was interest, and there was. And so we'd be ready to start launching and marketing that information tomorrow. With that, I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Mr. Aguirre, I have some comments and questions. One thing I forgot to mention about my visits, I love the baskets that the teachers have on the kids' desks to make sure that they're not exchanging instructional materials. Very innovative ways our teachers are following the guidelines. Just really, really cool. And COVID testing, my understanding in certain tiers, we no longer have to do COVID testing.
If we go back to that slide where there was the chart, we don't have to, but on there is, it mentions yellow and orange tiers. It's symptomatic and response testing only, not asymptomatic testing. So asymptomatic testing was needed in the red and purple tiers.
On Wednesdays.
Correct.
Mhm.
And now in the orange tier, symptomatic and response testing only. However, there was a recent, I think, court decision that had removed the asymptomatic testing requirement in the red and purple tiers even earlier than Riverside going into the orange tier.
So now the big topic.
Yes.
State testing. I've been working a lot with, not a lot, but I've been communicating with Congressman Mark Takano as well as Congressman Ken Calvert about state assessments and the federal government's requirement on state testing. And we're very fortunate here in the last few days that the federal government has said that the state of California doesn't have to apply for a waiver because they've decoupled the accountability metrics and things like that to the federal government. So now it is on the state of California. And there was a press release from the state of California saying that one from the superintendent of public instruction, Tony Thurman said, quote, "We did not have to apply or do anything else to not do the SBAC. Quote, all you need to do is make sure the decision is defensible." He said this in public. I was watching him when he said this. The state Department of Education has come down with the word viability. You don't have to do the assessments if they're not viable. However, you have to have some sort of local metric in order to report to the stakeholders in your SARC. And luckily, we have been doing that with the iReady
Correct.
and other progress monitoring tools that we have, and we've been doing that. And every single one of our students is accustomed to doing that assessment. Is that correct?
3 times a year, correct.
Okay. So they've done it twice so far this year?
Yes.
Okay, so they're ready to do their third time, which is the end of the year assessment. So we have approximately 37 days left of school. Give or take, based upon the assessment schedule, 16 of those days would be used for assessments, just on my calculation and my schedule that I put together in my head.
For the state test, if we were.
For
to do
this,
it.
for the state test. Our kids' social emotional well-being was dashed through distance learning. The number one, as reported from Ms. Weiss, the number one thing that kids valued when coming back to school is that social interaction with their peers. We are starting to build that social emotional well-being back. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to make them sit at 16 days with the state assessments, and there it goes. We're going to put them in front of a computer and make them take this assessment. Again, State Superintendent of Public Instruction said we don't have to do it. The State California Department of Education said viability. If it's not viable, you don't have to do it. We will have third graders that see this assessment for the very first time. They've never seen this before. They've never been prepped for this before, but they have seen our local assessments before. Am I correct?
Correct. They've seen iReady, but they will have never seen the state assessment before.
They will have never seen this before. And even though the state government said they're going to reduce the numbers of the questions, et cetera, but we know how that works. I want to go back to viability. We still have students on virtual learning that will have to take this assessment. The security measures that are in place for the CASP, my understanding is going to be extremely difficult because with the limited number of students that are able to take the test at one time based upon the rules, our students' internet connection not being 100% available or 100% there, that impacts the viability. The students' social emotional well-being impacts the viability. I'm looking at some of the notes that I took about this. Supervision. There are so many security measures with the CASP. Students will be taking this at home. What's going to keep a student from using his phone to answer the questions on the CASP? So supervision impacts the viability. The utilization of this data impacts the viability. The decision-making process that we use is dependent on the data that we receive from our locally developed measures through iReady. These state assessments, we don't get them when we're making our district our decisions for the next school year. Another chink in the armor of viability. Districts throughout the state are grappling with this question because of the lack of information provided by the State Department of Education. And I think it's time that we, as Romoland, take a stand for our kids and take Tony Thurman's word that says, if you can't do the state assessment, you don't have to. And the waiver or the information provided from the CDE, if it is not a viable assessment, you don't have to do it. All you have to do is have a local metric to report. So I would like to entertain with the board is that we show our support for our kids, our staff, and at the most, we schedule a special board meeting and put together a resolution that says that the Romoland School District is not taking the state assessments. We will provide information on student achievement data using our locally developed assessments that the press release from the State Department of Education and from Tony Thurman's own words. We did not have to apply for a waiver or anything else to not do the SBAC. All you need to do is to make sure that the decision is defensible. I think we can defend that decision. Now, that's the biggest obstacle we'll have to overcome is scheduling a board meeting and have staff develop that resolution and demonstrate to our community. Or it could be as easy as tonight, we have a discussion and we give direction, I think, to this district to say, we are not going to put our kids through these assessments. It is not viable according to the State Department of Education or the Superintendent of Public Instruction. So I would like to entertain that discussion and your thoughts on that as a board. Because the impact on our kids taking the state assessment and the amount of time, as Ms. Carroll said, she has got opportunities to do some social emotional learning with our kids, but not if they have to take this darn assessment. And believe me, I like assessments. I do, because it gives us data and we're supposed to be able to use it to impact our program. This data will not be used. It's not viable.
I think let's have a discussion. I don't mind that at all. And the numbers that you said about approximately 16 days will be taken up when they've been on their computers for the last year And now it'll be taken up with doing these assessments that aren't viable, that I believe. I'd like to hear from you as a dad. I mean, you have kids in school.
I mean, if
What
we-
kind of impact would this be on them?
if we have the option, well, obviously the social emotional distancing and them not being in school, I think it's not the same as learning the way they used to learn. So if it is an option, obviously, if it is an option to not do it, that would be something that I would be open to. And especially in this environment, for them to take this test and be just ripped on the last year of what happened. Yes.
Sounds like we have a majority of the board.
And we did not get such state assessments last year, and we were only out of school for 2 months. So, I know that we can have such where we and it may be solved by Fiscal.
Well, I don't know what the options are, but I would be open to doing a special session to discuss that and see if we come up with a resolution for it, if we're all in favor for it. Thank you for that, and we'll see if we can schedule a special board so we can discuss that and make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I know that was robust about state testing. Any other questions on the topic of COVID?
One more thing, but I know not a lot of our staff members watch these board meetings. Can you ensure that email goes out to the staff either tonight or tomorrow morning indicating our discussions this evening about state assessments and what we would like to do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weiss and Mr. Eller. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are approved in one motion. Do any board members have any comments or questions in regards to the consent agenda? Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor, Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Ms. Kleitz,
Aye.
and myself, Mr. Gary, aye. Now move on to action items. M1, resolution number 14, 2020-2021, authorization to encumber funds to new fiscal year 2021-2022. Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Aguirre. Members of the board, tonight, this resolution that we're asking the board to approve would allow the district to encumber funds for the new school year. Is often needed for purchase orders to be entered prior to the July 1st start of the actual school year. And this resolution would allow for that to happen.
Thank you. Do any board members have any comments or questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
You have a second.
All in favor, Mr. Eller,
Aye.
Ms. Kleitz,
Aye.
Myself, Mr. Gary, I. Moving to M2, resolution number 15, 2020-2021, resolution authorizing the temporary transfer of monies held in any fund or account to other funds or accounts of the district for payment of obligations for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Similar to the previous resolution, this is in regards to the 21-22 school year. This resolution would allow the district to move around funds as is necessary to pay obligations as the funding sources or the requirements to the way that we want to spend the money changes throughout the year. And this would just enable the district to be able to do that.
Thank you. Any board members have any comments or questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
All in favor, Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Ms. Kleitz,
Aye.
and myself, Mr. Gary, I. Moving on to M3, resolution number 16, 2020-2021. Resolution authorizing the transfer of appropriations for 2021-2022. Mr. Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Similar to the previous one, this does allow us again to make transfers of appropriations around as is necessary throughout the year for the school year for next year.
Thank you. Any board members have any comments or questions? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, Mr. Reller,
Aye.
Ms. Kleitz,
Aye.
and myself, Mr. Gary, I. Right, so at this point, we do not need to go back to closed session. So closing comments, Mr. Reller.
Other than congratulations again, Trevor and Nikki, and thank you all for listening to me this evening. Hopefully, I won't talk as much next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Kleitz.
No, your comments are always appreciated and eye-opening. No comments.
And myself, likewise, thank you, Mr. Reller, for bringing up those topics as well in your comments. And that is it for me. So the meeting is adjourned at 7:27.